would like to welcome you again to be our special guest in UFO Disclosure Bulgaria. We met once, not a long time ago, in Arizona. And all these Bulgarians who watched our video, they was very excited to meet you because, you're Katлийн Mardъn.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And before to go further with that questions, I would like to talk just a little bit about Stan Freeman. I know you worked together for many, many, many years, and I had that beautiful chance to meet him and to talk with him in camera the same time when we met with you in Arizona. He is a great man, and that is my impression, even for first time talk with him.
Yes, he certainly was a great man, and has left the world's largest archival collection on UFOs after 50 years of research.
Oh, where is the archives of Stan right now?
Stanton has an archival collection in the province of New Brunswick at their archives, and in Canada, and they believe it will take them about 10 years to actually put the entire collection together in an orderly fashion and catalog it. The collection is so huge. I think that he must have kept every recording of everyone he ever spoke with, and paper records. His office was just stuffed with papers.
You still work for MUFON, and you're still a member of the Dr. Mitchell Foundation?
I am still a member of the Dr. Mitchell Foundation, and I am no longer MUFON's Director of Experiencer Research. The reason for that is that I've been extraordinarily busy with other things, and so I decided to step down, but I am a consultant to MUFON's Experiencer Resource Team. We have just published the second edition of Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience, the 60th anniversary edition, with updates and new information and scientific information as well. So I'm really excited about that. I've been extraordinarily busy working on radio shows and podcasts and even television shows.
What you can disclose, what's new you can disclose from the UFO world or scientific field?
Well, this is the one thing that I am releasing regarding Betty and Barney's case. There were witnesses to the UFO that night, and all of that information is in the book specifically. But this information came from the newspaper reporter for the Boston Traveler, who released their story in a 5-part series in October of 1965. It was the result of a violation of confidentiality. Betty and Barney had never intended to release that story. Betty was a social worker for the state of New Hampshire. Barney worked for the post office. They were both very active in the civil rights movement and for human rights. They were invited to Lyndon Johnson's inauguration before it was revealed. Barney was appointed to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights as a state advisory committee member, and had received numerous awards for his work in the community and in the state as well. And so that really brought a screeching halt sort of to their credibility when this information was released as a result of a violation of confidentiality, to some. For those who didn't know them, they remained credible to those who did know them. And so Stanton Friedman had written to this newspaper reporter, John Luttrell, during the 1970s. Luttrell at that point was no longer a newspaper reporter. He had taken a job with a hospital where he was an administrator. And he told Stanton in detail about the witnesses, at least a dozen witnesses that he had found, and where they were located. But he said, I don't want to be drawn back into this controversy. Don't ever use my name. So Stanton never released this information. But near the end of his life, he gave it to me. And now I have been able to release that. So that's the teaser. There's a lot more information in the update in the book, and I'm just very proud of it. And if you purchase the book, then you will know what that is.
So that book is released already?
It has been released. It was released in April.
What is the name?
Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience 60th Anniversary Edition.
That's so cool. I look, it's in Amazon, right?
You can get it at Amazon. Those in the United States can get autographed copies on my website at Katлийн-Mardъn.com, but you have to live in the United States.
Actually, I saw the book behind you in the desk.
Yes, there it is. Right next to my award. So yes, that is the updated book, and it's available in bookstores and on many online bookstores as well, not just Amazon, but Barnes and Noble and many others.
I'm going today to look for this in Barnes and Noble. So you know about this conference in Bulgaria? We rescheduled for next year, September 2022. Do you think you'll be able to come, or you can enjoy by via Skype or Zoom?
I think that I would prefer to do this via Skype or Zoom because I feel uncomfortable traveling alone in a foreign country, especially when I don't speak the language.
Well, but we still be happy to have you via Skype or Zoom.
Oh, thank you.
So lately, many people start talking about this man-made UFO crafts in this special and unacknowledged government projects. What do you know about this?
I know that the scientists from the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, who held top-level positions on things like the skunk works, say that the Tic Tac and the other anomalous phenomena that has been recorded on our Navy's most updated radar, which they claim is the best in the world, those craft are way beyond our second generation craft. They can hover at 80,000 feet for hours on end. They can drop to 20,000 feet in a second. Any human body inside that craft would not survive. What would happen is the force of gravity would be so great that it would kill any human. And we don't have the knowledge or the technology to make our own gravitational field in a craft to help it to behave that way. It can also, in another second, drop to 50 feet above the ocean churn. And there was another craft that was larger than an aircraft carrier underneath it. They appeared to be communicating. The Tic Tac bounced back and forth like a ping pong ball. And I can tell you that was the motion that my uncle described it back in 1961. He didn't say ping pong ball. He said it reminded him of a yo-yo moving out and then coming back. But that's the same motion.
You said second generation. What do you mean with that?
That means that way beyond what we have currently. It would be, the first generation would be new technology being developed. When that is developed, then there would be other technology developed based upon new scientific concepts and moving forward technologically. So the scientists say we can't do that. We don't have the knowledge or the ability, and nor does any other country on this planet. So I believe the scientists.
Yeah, of course. Dr. Stephen Greer lately in the interview, he mentioned about this case from Texas. I don't remember what year it was, when 2 helicopters escorting a UFO. And he said that our scientists, they try to replicate that technology, but probably they don't have the correct component to make that propulsion system. So they use some kind of nuclear power, but unfortunately that doesn't work very well, and the people was affected from that radiation.
Yes, Vicki Landrum and Betty Cash were the 2 women, and Vicki's young grandson, Colby, was with them at the time. And they had gone out, it was New Year's Eve, and they were looking for a bingo game, and they couldn't find anything that was open. So they stopped at a restaurant, had something to eat, and then they were driving back to their homes when this craft was hovering over the highway, and they stopped the car. Otherwise they would have had to have driven directly underneath it. Got out of the car and looked up at this craft. Later, there were actually a number of helicopters that were escorting it away. But Betty Cash stayed outside the car the longest. Vicki wanted to protect Colby inside the car. She was afraid that he would run off into the woods or something and get lost. So Betty had the worst radiation burns. She spent a month in the hospital. Her face was unrecognizable due to these ionizing radiation burns that she received. She ended up never being able to work again, and eventually passed away from cancer several years later. So it was a real tragic event. And, you know, if this was one of our craft that was being used experimentally, the government certainly would not admit to it. This case went to court, and Betty Cash and Vicki Landrum did not win the case because the government said it was not our craft. We have no evidence. Of course, they would not reveal, the government would not reveal above top secret projects that they were working on. And Stanton Friedman told me that he thought that it was probably an extraterrestrial craft. But I do know that Stanton was working on nuclear-powered craft during his career as a nuclear physicist. So, you know, this could have been a black budget project attempting to develop nuclear aircraft for use, you know, maybe on the moon as a moon lander, maybe not. They were trying to build nuclear rockets at the time and nuclear airplanes. So, you know, it could have been ours. The government just would not admit to it. And unfortunately, Betty Cash lost her hair in spots, her fingernails, just was a horrible mess. And Vicki Landrum received some burns as well, but not as many as Betty did.
Mhm. Do you know approximately what was the distance from her to the craft?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. I even wrote about this in Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers.
Because
it was fairly close. It was hovering, maybe within 100 feet of her, maybe closer.
That's very close.
Yes, it was close. Lower than treetop level is my understanding, if my memory is correct.
That's fine, yeah. Maybe there's many more witnesses with this, and maybe many other people were get that radiation.
Yes, there were other witnesses that night, it's my understanding, and as it moved off, it was being escorted by Army helicopters.
Yeah. What new? I mean, did you still work on some cases, or you was busy only with the book and this documentary?
I have been working on a big case, and so I don't have a lot of time to work on smaller cases. I do give consultations to people who would like to speak with me about their events, and people can purchase that on my website at Katлийн-Mardъn.com. But I have worked on this very large case where I was contacted by two highly credible women, well-educated women, who were respected paranormal researchers. And Stanton Friedman introduced them to me. He had met them at a conference. He had attended their lecture. They were speaking about theoretical physics, and he was impressed by what they were talking about. So they came to me and asked me if I could locate a confirmed abductee, someone whose case had been investigated over and over again, and it had been determined that it was real. And within traveling distance of the two of them, I did find someone. I found Chris Bledsoe, and Chris agreed to allow them to do an experiment at his home. They set it up, and they took all of their equipment to Chris's home, a Bell and Howell video camera, devices to record EVPs, I believe magnetic fields. They were not carrying their own possessions, or in terms of bags or cell phones or anything like that, anything that could possibly interfere with what they were doing. One of those witnesses, Ashley, is a historian, and she actually researches the genealogical history of the people who live in the house and the owners of the house. So they had done all of this research. The night arrived, they're outside holding the recording devices. The camera has been left running in another location. And Chris says, I believe that's a craft coming in now. It was next to the moon, and it was coming in larger and larger. The next thing they knew, they were reeling back and forth, feeling nauseated. They didn't know what happened. The equipment they had been holding in their hands was on the ground behind them, the wet ground. They never would have intentionally put it on the wet ground. And they went into Chris's home after they picked everything up. And his wife said, "Where have you been? I've been looking for you. You go someplace? You weren't out there." And so this left the mystery of missing time. What happened, if anything? And what they discovered is that video camera that they left running, recorded for a couple of minutes, maybe, an abduction in progress. There was a blue, almost a blue-violet light that went across the screen. You could see in one case, there was a break, and there was an entity that was not fully materialized. You could see through parts of her dropping off. She was in that beam. She dropped off. She materialized as she came closer to the ground and became larger. There was another entity who had dropped off and was sitting on the ground. He lifted up into the air. He appeared to be wearing some kind of backpack, had a very strange bent neck, head forward, kind of a long neck, the knees bent, and it glided across the screen. And when it was doing this, it had a white light in one hand and a blue light in the other. And those hands were moving back and forth, and its head was turning back and forth, maybe looking for the humans. And then there was a huge flash of light, and there was an entity that was closer to the camera. And the camera took a photograph of that. When that entity realized that it was being photographed, it left the scene very, very rapidly.
That is super cool. Let me ask you, with all these years experiences with weird stuff or unknown or mystical or unknown stuff, but have you met someone who shared with you personal experience, like to see himself or herself in the same time somewhere? I'm not talking about twins. Did you understand my question?
I think that you're talking about two of the same individual. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, theoretically, that is possible. I have had only two people tell me about this, and they visited their other self in a dream state, and these were recurring dreams.
No, I'm not talking about dreams.
I don't know of anyone who has met themselves. No, I haven't. Have you?
That's me.
That's you. Okay. So you have met yourself. Can you tell me about where you saw yourself?
Oh, that was super crazy. I still was a student, maybe 18 years old or maybe 17 years old. And I walk in that happened in Bulgaria. I walk in the street, and it was around maybe noon or maybe 1 or 2 p.m., something like this. And no one was in the street, just me. I walking, going to downtown of that city. I was in that time. And then I saw a person walking in in front of me, but walking in that way. and I stop, and this person looks exactly like me. The same hairstyle, same face, same jacket color, absolutely, everything was the same.
Wow.
I stop. He cannot see. He haven't seen me, but I see him.
Oh.
And that person, me, eventually, he just walk and turn right on to the another street. And I was stayed like this, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what to think. And because I'm adopted, so for a moment I think maybe I have a twin.
Uh-huh.
But actually, there's not twin.
Mm-hmm.
And for many years, I had that question in my mind, and coming and living, time to time, until 2 years ago when I was in Miami, I met, Ray Hernandez, I believe.
Yeah, yes, I know Ray well.
He met me with one of his friends. I forget his name, but he's Latino or maybe Cuban, former CIA officer. And he shared a story with he had a similar experience in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, wow, I mean, I'm not alone with this.
Right. But the other one couldn't see you, so you couldn't exchange conversation. I'm wondering if it was your etheric body that was separated from your physical body and that you were viewing yourself.
You're talking for me or for him?
For you. Or, I mean, if it's the same process, it could have applied.
I wasn't completely conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if something, some astral projection to go there, or I don't know. But I saw myself exactly the same way how I walking, the same jacket color, the hair, absolutely was 100% copy of me.
I would have been very startled if that were me, I can tell you. What a mystery.
It is. Okay, I don't want to take more of your time today, but I'm very thankful for this conversation, and I appreciate your time to spend with us.
It was a pleasure to speak with you again.
Yeah, and let's finish with this. After all these years of your investigating different kind of cases, but basically abductions, and asking you that because Tom Friedman, in my interview with him, he said, I'm completely convinced that the planet Earth was visited and continue visiting from extraterrestrial life. What is your conclusion, if I can say conclusion?
Well, I believe that we are being visited by highly technologically advanced individuals from another planet that have interdimensional technology that they can use to remove people through solid surfaces. I believe that they open an interdimensional portal, and sometimes if that is not closed, it allows other entities from other dimensions to come through into our dimension as well. So, boy, it's in the beginning, I was a nuts and bolts researcher. I had to have physical evidence, but the more I have learned, probably the crazier I sound, but it's unbelievable. And you mentioned Ray Hernandez. He has a new organization that's focused entirely on consciousness. And so I have learned a lot, and I agree with Ray, but I do not think that all of it is interdimensional and from this planet. I think that there are other possibilities, such as I just stated, and possibly time travelers coming back. Mm-hmm. So maybe many things going on.
Yeah, I have more questions, but I'll leave that for the next time.
Okay.